I didn't get you a copy yet, but I'll make you a full copy. Here's a couple of pages. Okay? Val? If I say anything wrong, you'll jump out the window. I have to be careful. So. Hope everybody had a nice Shabbos.
How was yours?
Baruch Hashem. 4 very cute little grandchildren.
Baruch Hashem.
Making all sorts of... Okay. We're in Monsignor Tess. We're going to read from the top of the page very quickly. We saw it last time. We're going to read it and translate it, and that'll be our review on where we were. The Rebbe is explaining the inyan of usher. What is an usher? What is a rich person? Right? And what we said was, mushba beribu yashefa. He's not lacking anything and is benefits from tremendous bounty, beneficence. What's that? Mamshich ba'maimer, the inyan of usher who learned again. We saw this yesterday. I'm just going to read through it. I'm going to explain it. Just going to read and translate as review. The inyan of usher who learned she'eino chaser shum davar. It's not only that he's not lacking, elishu mushba b'ribu yeshefa, that he's again privy to tremendous bounty. Ukemaimer Chazal, like Chazal say, the pasuk de mechseroi asher yechseroi. The pasuk that talks about the tzedakah you're supposed to give, so it uses the word chaser twice. That which he's lacking, that which is lacking to him. So what's the double usage? De mechseroi, you have to give him that which he is lacking. Ve'iyata mitzuva la'ashrei, but you don't have to give him. You're not commanded to make him rich. Which means, obviously, that being rich is more than simply not lacking, because you have to give him what he's not lacking, and yet he's still not rich. Since that includes that includes the horse that he can ride upon and the servant to run in front of him, if that's someone's normal situation. So then you're obligated to give him tzedakah so that he can live that life. And yet you're still not commanded to make him rich, which means having the Lexus with the shofar is not called being rich. How do they move on? Shagam kishiyesh leikol tzrachav, even when he has all of his needs, which includes a horse to ride and a servant to run in front of him to the bathhouse. Eino adayin usher, still not an usher. Ki inyan ha'usher, who the inyan of usher is the loivak sheyesh leikol tzrachav. Not only does he have all that he needs, he has more than he needs. In other words, and this is based on what we saw earlier in the Rebbe Shab, he's lacking nothing. And now the Rebbe explains, and based on that which we were taught before, above, that Mesha, he was rich in material matters because he was rich in spiritual matters. Move on the Nesef Lazeh, in addition to the fact that in Mesha there was no lacking. Gam loy chisaron de bedugma sus lirkei v'lav, also not the lacking that's similar to the horse to ride or the eved to run in front of him. Because again, if someone's lacking that, then obviously they're not rich. But Mesha's beyond that, not lacking anything. Now, what do we? We got up to 2 lines further. We started talking about Mamale and Seviv, and we'll continue that discussion to make sure that that's clear. Key, Heiru le begilu, and what's Mesha's true richness? It shone to him in a revealed way. Kol hagiluyim hashayachim leilas, all of the levels of godly revelation that are relevant to worlds. Right now, what's the level of light that's most specifically relevant to worlds. What's it called? We talked about it on Thursday. Or Mamale, the light that fills the world, the light that is directly responsible for the existence of that which you are experiencing. If you're seeing something, then the godly light that's giving that thing existence is called Or Mamale. There is a greater level of light called Sovev. We talked about it in terms of powers of the soul. We'll come back to that in a second. There's a greater level of light, but the direct existence of all reality is dependent on Or Mimale, the light that undergoes a process of diminishing ad kidei kach to such an extent that it can be clothed in a vessel, can express itself in a particular finite vessel and give that vessel life. Okay, that's called Or Mimale. Right, and what do Chazal say about that light? Just like, this is how we know that the true mashal of this, the way we understand it, is through our neshama. Just like the soul fills the body, so God fills the world. Why are you alive? You have a soul. If God forbid the soul leaves the body, now you cease to be alive. Right now, that does not mean the body ceases to exist. So there is a difference between the soul and the godly light that powers the world. Because if the godly light that powers the world disappears, there's no world. The soul is not the source of the existence of the body. It gives vitality, life to the body. There's a difference. Okay, that being said, you and I experience the fact that inside of us is something called life, whatever that is. And as long as we have that, then we walk around and do whatever we do. Right? And as soon as that disappears, so then people stop walking around and stop doing whatever they were doing. There's still a body, the body's buried. So the existence of the body doesn't come from the soul, but the vitality of the body comes from the soul. Okay, so just go one step further when you're talking about the world. The vitality, but also the very existence of the world comes from the, so to speak, the soul of the world. What's that? Or Mamale, the godly light that fills everything and gives it existence, because the only thing that truly exists is the Eibishter himself. So if something is to exist, it must have a connection to him and must get its existence from him, because nothing else exists, ultimately. Certainly nothing exists independently. It might exist on some level, and we'll call it existence with a small e. Relative existence. Yeah, we're around, right? It says the world was created. You can't say the world's... there are people who like to say that the world is... In Yiddishkeit also, outside of Yiddishkeit for sure, but in Yiddishkeit also, I mean, certain Eastern religions talk about that the world is an illusion. It's not true. The world's not an illusion. Right? Well, how do you know that? Rabbi Marash brings two proofs that the world is not an illusion. One is it says, "Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'haaretz." The first pasuk in Torah said God created heaven and earth. He created something. It's not an illusion. He didn't create an illusion. He created heaven and earth. Doesn't have absolute existence, but it exists. And Rabbi Marash brings another raya, a proof. In the old days, today is not the case, but in the old days, if you happen to see someone doing malacha on Shabbos, one of the categories of activity on Shabbos that's forbidden, and two witnesses saw that person doing it, and they told them, do you know what you're doing is prohibited, and this is the malacha, you're doing this malacha, and the punishment is death? And he says, yes, I do. As a matter of fact, thank you very, very much. I appreciate your help. And then he does it. He's put to death and basted. That wasn't an illusion that he was Machal Shabbos. That was real. He's put to death and basted. He could say, well, I wasn't Machal Shabbos. It was an illusion. I didn't do anything. No, he did. Down here he did. And what happens in the spiritual world, I have no idea, but that's not my business. My business is, what am I doing down here? Right? And what I'm doing down here matters. Why? Because it's real. Down here, it's real. So the Eibishter created the world. How did he do it? So he created the world by taking infinite, beyond infinite godly energy, allowing it to express itself in an infinite way. What kind of light is that called? Seve, beautiful. Right? And in a finite way, and that's called Mamale. Godly light can express itself in finitude. Ooh. Won't spill on me. And it'll wipe out the spills. It's even better. Right? Okay. So Moshe Rabbeinu not only was Moshe Rabbeinu privy to a sensitivity and a revelation of all of the light that's directly responsible for the creation of the world, or Mamale, the light that fills, just like powers of your soul fill your body, sight in the eyes, hearing in the ears, speech in the mouth, movement in the legs and arms, etc., etc. We talked about it. Hanichlolin said that he illuminated to Moshe in a revealed way. Kol hagiluyim meshayachim leilamas. Hanichlolin b'shnei inyonim that are incorporated in two things: the mamale galamim and seviv galamim. Light that fills and light that surrounds, encompasses. Also called, and Josh asked this after Shiyasa because you run into this now and then, makif or makif. We're saying seviv and makif. The same. And both of those ultimately are sources of the world. There's a direct source and the higher hidden source. Right? We talked about it in terms of will, right? Seviv, one of the a muscle in powers of the soul for Seviv is will. It's not clothed in any particular limb. It expresses itself in all limbs equally. And it's hidden behind everything you do. In terms of mamale, what aspect of my soul am I using right now? What power?
Your hands.
That's not a power, that's a kli. What power of my soul am I using right now? Very simple. No,
You want to pick it up.
Beside it, what am I doing though?
Picking up the cup.
Pick it up, okay, so what power of movement is that? What's that called? Huh?
Lift it.
Movement. It's called movement. Power of the soul. Movement, right? People, things move, right? There's seeing, there's hearing, there's movement, right? I'm not seeing by picking up the cup. I'm not talking by picking up the cup. I'm talking while I'm picking up the cup. That's my feminine side. I can do two things at once. But okay. What's ultimately powering that? Why am I doing that? Simple answer. Because I want to. Oh, okay. So what's hidden behind that and is involved in that activity? My will. But don't describe this activity as an act of will. That's not what it is. I mean, it is. Okay. So that means it is absolutely no different than speaking, singing, playing the violin. They're all the same. Oh, it's an act of will. In other words, I didn't explain it in any way, shape, or form. Why? Because everything's an act of will. Every single conscious act we do is an act of will, by definition. Right? You were told by your father, you have to learn how to do things you don't want to do, son. We were all told that at some point, and Baruch Hashem didn't murder anyone at the time. Okay. What did he really mean? I don't know what he really meant. But what does he really mean? Because every single thing you do is an act of will, right? You can't do anything you don't want to do. There's no such thing in the world. It doesn't exist except moving your leg when the doctor hits it with the little hammer, that's called a reflex, and moving your hand away from fire or other such things, which we'll call reflexes. How many actions of reflex do you do in the course of a day? Very few. How many actions do you do that are a result of a conscious decision to do it because you want to? Endless numbers of things, including going like that. Right? Okay. Well,
Does the reflex of your heart beating and breathing, is that a reflex or is that something else entirely?
it's not a conscious activity. So
Okay.
we're only talking about conscious activity.
Okay.
Thank you for pointing that out. Right? So that's just, my body doing what it does without me being involved. Are there people who could control their heartbeat? Yes. Okay, they could even bring that into the famous story. Who was it?
It was some rabbi, no?
No, it was a Chassidus of the Alter Rebbe. The Chassidus of the Alter Rebbe who was spying for
Russians.
spying for the Russians in Napoleon's camp. He spoke perfect French. I think it was Sean writes it. Napoleon was evidently a pretty smart guy. And Napoleon walked into the tent where there were a bunch of generals and him. And Napoleon said, "There's a spy here." And he put his hand on the chest of everybody in the room. Obviously the spy's heart would be beating a little faster than everybody else. His heartbeat was completely normal. And when he told the story, he said, the Alter Rebbe told us that a meyach shalit al halev, that the brain controls the heart. Now generally we understand that conceptually, that my objective understanding of reality will overcome my subjective desire for something that objectively I realize is not what I should be doing. He said that you can even bring it down into Gashmias. And he wasn't found. He wasn't found out. And he helped the Russians, tremendous. The Alter Rebbe was made a citizen of Russia by virtue of helping.
Honorary.
Right. Jews couldn't be citizens. Right? And that extended to the whole family.
His whole family?
All of the Schneersons that came after. The Alter Rebbe wasn't a Schneerson, obviously. What was the Alter Rebbe's last name? It's in a Yom. Okay. When you see it in a Yom, when you go through between now and next year, this time, I don't remember where it is. Baruchovich, Yefeh. What was the Middle Rebbe's last name? You remember? Shniri. Yefeh. What was the Tzemach Tzedek's last name? Schneerson. It was the first Schneerson. Shniri. Shniri. Schneer person, son of Schneer. Right? And then the name Schneerson came from the Tzemach Tzedek. But the Alter Rebbe is Baruchovich. The Alter Rebbe's parents were Baruch and Rivka. My wife never wanted, my name is Baruch, my wife's name is Rivka. My wife never wanted someone named Schneer because she said you're going to call him Schnooky. And I don't want a kid called Schnooky. So God decided that she was going to lose because she had a son born on Yud Tes Kislev. So his name is Schneer. and he was called Schnooky, and his older brothers and sisters still call him Schnooky, but his wife doesn't, and his kids don't, and his parents also don't, and no one who knows him does, except his, of course, big siblings. Hi, Schnooky! You can never get away with your big siblings. They'll always call you that. So we did call him Schnooky. It is what we call him. He was a Schnooky, you had to call him. It's not a Schnooky anymore. Right. So Sevev is definitely powering that act. It's here. Is my will here? Of course my will is here. Where else is it? Right? But that's not what you see. What you see is a finite action called movement. Right? So I picked a hard one, but okay. The hand is the kli for that. And that hand is completely bottled to my rotzain, completely and totally, because Baruch Hashem, my nervous system works properly. And therefore I do not have to tell my hand to pick up the cup. As soon as I have a desire to pick up the cup, my hand responds. I have to tell it to. If, God forbid, someone had a stroke, so then they have to learn how to do that again. And they'll have to consciously, I don't know how that works, but I mean, that's what, I remember going to visit a friend who had a stroke, and he was tying his shoes. I said, "Why? What are you doing?" He said, "I'm learning how to tie my shoes again."
Wow.
I was tying them and untying them, tying them and untying them. So I forgot how to tie shoes. Whoa. He was 65.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's fine now, Baruch Hashem. Mm-hmm. There's no noticeable. I mean, there might be in his life, I don't know, but when you talk to him, see him, but no noticeable residue of that. But interesting enough, he got how to tie shoes because it was just somehow there was a ketzer there, and the connection between one thing and another thing, which is really astounding. Right? Okay. Now that's not so much that is an expression of will, but it's really, that's just, the physical motor of it. Right? I mean, it's not that he had to tell his hands, okay, now tie shoes. Had to somehow will his hands to do those motions that are called tying shoes. But in terms of wanting to tie shoes, as soon as he wanted to do that, his hands would go there. They just didn't know how to do it anymore. So they had to learn how to do it. So that's Sevev and Mamale. And what was Moshe privy to? Both. Therefore lacking nothing. And we said this, we talked about this in terms of the world, and that's what the Rebbe is taking us. I'm sorry. The revelation of these realities, Sevev and Mamale, who milui achisoren, is filling the lack. Meaning, were there not these two levels of revelation, then the world would lack. Now that means shiur is beyond these two levels, because these are the two levels of necessity. Absolute necessity, that's Mamale, and relative necessity, that's Sevev, because for the person who's used to having a Lexus with a shofar, so that's necessary. But that's not absolute. Food and shelter is absolute. You need that. Okay, so that'll be Mamale. Without that, nothing goes. Sevev, extra, but necessary. Depends on who you are. Well, let's see. What's that going to be in godliness? So we talked about it last time. The revelation of these two levels of godly reality are filling the lack. What does that mean? That if they weren't there, something would be lacking. The Mamale, the light that fills, that means the light that's clothed in Kalim, in reality to give it existence. Shehu Makar Li'elamus, it's the true source of the worlds. True might be the wrong word. It's the obvious source of the worlds. Lochein, therefore, kisha'r ze eina begilui beilam. When this light is not revealed in the world, the world is definitely lacking. What's lacking in appreciation of what it's really all about. So what's the world? The world's a revelation of godly existence. And when that's concealed, so the world's lacking. What about the infinite light that's just as much here? It's not that infinite light isn't here. It's not like it's up there and Mamale's down here. No, infinite light is here. What part of me is here when I pick up the cup? Ratzon. Where's my Ratzon? It's somewhere else. Where is it? It's hovering around me? No, my Ratzon's in me. But it's not in me like sight and speech and hearing and intellect and movement. Because those are specific powers of the soul clothed in specific parts of the body. And if the light of sight, the power of sight, were to be clothed in the ear, I couldn't hear and I couldn't see. Different power, different light. Okay. So the kli has to be commensurate to the light. That makes sense. And the light has to be commensurate to the kli. That also makes sense. That's Mamale. Sevev, it's there. It just isn't revealed in finite reality. This world, we've talked about this a number of times, this world is the dance between finite and infinite. Is there infinite reality here? Of course there's infinite reality here. How many points in space are there between these two finite points in space? An infinite amount of points in space. So you're going to tell me there's no infinite in the world? This is an infinite set. How about that? Oh, that's half infinite. No, also infinite. How many points of space are there in between my two fingers? Infinite amount of points of space. Well, no, your fingers are touching. There's no space in there. Right, okay, let's take my finger and put it under a microscope and see what happens. Turn it up. Forget about my two fingers. How about that? Put that under a microscope. What are you going to see? We're all full of holes. Right? Well, just these things bouncing around that aren't connected per se. I mean, they are, but they aren't. Right? On some level they are, and on some level they aren't. right? Okay, just keep turning up the microscope until you could see empty space. You move it over a little. There's a cell or whatever you're going to see. Found something. We're held together by this saran wrap. Treat your skin nicely. Use nice soap in the mikveh that keeps it supple and. It's all right. You lose a layer of it every day, and you don't even know, right? Didn't even notice.
No,
So
not 3 in 1. No.
Yeah, 3 in 1. What's the third?
Conditioner, shampoo, and body wash.
And what?
Conditioner, shampoo, body wash.
What's body wash?
Lexus.
Body. Okay. No, I just have the 2 in 1. The conditioner and the anti-shampoo, and my beard is soft and silky like a baby's bottom. It's that Head and Shoulders 2 in 1. Fantastic. Okay. So Soivev's here. You just can't see it. By virtue of the fact that you and I experience finite reality, we do not experience infinite reality. Were we to experience infinite reality, guess what? What would we not experience? Finite reality. Okay. Why? Because those two things are opposite states of being. What is it, and we talked about this before, what is it that can allow for somehow those two things, called infinite and finite, to dance together so they are always in a state of harmony, one with the other, in this world that you and I experience? What is it that allows that to happen? A force beyond both. That forces those two things to interact. And what's that force called? The Eibishter. It's beyond infinite. If he were infinite, he couldn't express himself in finite, as we're going to see, because there's a limitation of Soivev. Soivev's limited. What limits Soivev? Mamale, meaning, so to speak. Again, it's very much so to speak, because you have to understand, it's not that it's not here, but so to speak, as light descends down, because we always have to look at these things in very physical terms. As the light descends down, so then Soivev, the infinite light, all of a sudden, there's this new reality that comes into being called finite reality, and so to speak, there's a sign that says to Soivev, do not enter. This isn't for you. Well, okay, we know it's here, but on a certain level, do not enter, meaning you're not going to be revealed down here. You're revealed up here, but you're not going to be revealed down here. Why not? Because this is Mamale's place. This is finitude's place. This is where that happens. Okay. Now, are they both necessary? Yes, they're both necessary. Which is directly necessary for the existence of every single thing you see? Mamala. Just like directly you would describe what I'm doing as speaking. You're willing. What do you mean willing? Okay, good. Right? That means I don't understand. Right? Because if you were to, if we ask questions and, like what's the answer? And the answer is, well, the Gemara is asking the question because it's difficult. It's an answer to the question. What's difficult? The idea. What idea? The one about Shabbos. Yes, well, we're learning Gemara Shabbos. I'm sure it's probably an idea about Shabbos. Which idea about Shabbos? Up until now, I haven't answered the question because everything I said is relevant to any answer you would ever give. When I get specific, so then I ask the question. Okay. So too, in terms of defining reality, when we're specific about reality, we're talking about our Mamala. That's our Mamala. Finite, specific, differentiated reality. Or Mamala. Higher levels, lower levels, more sophisticated, less sophisticated. Just like the powers of the soul that are clothed in the body, obviously intellect is a much more sophisticated power than movement, and therefore movement is clothed in feet and hands, which are smashed around all the time, and intellect is clothed in this unbelievably sophisticated thing called the brain, which is very carefully protected by a skull so that it won't get smashed around. Because if it gets smashed around, it's over. Whereas if your hands get smashed around, nothing happens. I mean, maybe you break a finger, besides you fix it. Right. Higher, lower. Will? Will's will. Now, we talked about Pnimius Aratzon and Chitzonius Aratzon, the inner will and the external will, but it's all still will. I'm doing it because I want to. Okay. It's not about differentiation in the realm of will. If there's no mamale, what does that mean? If there's no mamale, there's no world, right? But if mamale isn't revealed, then the world is lacking because I don't understand anything about what's going on around me. If I take God out of the world, I'm clueless because I don't really understand anything that's going on in terms of what I'm experiencing. Because what are we all experiencing? We're all experiencing revelations of godliness in everything that we encounter. Okay, I don't get it. Okay, say that. Can happen. Happens to all of us at certain points in life, right? There are moments where we're completely clueless. V'ora seivev, shulam mailim imakar leilamis. It's beyond being the source of worlds. Now, what does that mean? It's beyond being the direct source of worlds. Like you guys defined that action as an expression of will, which is true. The reason I picked up the cup is because I wanted to. That's true. So it had some place in that action, but it's not the direct source of that action. The direct source of that action is called movement, the power of movement. And a person, I don't want to say this personally because Chas v'Shalom to ever come to such a state, but a person could want to do something very powerfully but not have the physical ability to do it, and so it doesn't happen. Right? It only happens because of the mamale of it. Right? If you're holding my hand behind my back and I want to move the cup with my right hand, well, I can't. That doesn't mean I don't want to. I just can't. Why? Well, you're stronger than me and I can't move my hand. Okay. Because the direct source of the action is not it. It comes from will. So the will is shaykh to it. That's the next line we're going to see. But it's not the direct source of it. The direct source of it is the power of movement. Because it's an act in Gashmias. It's beyond being the source of worlds, and this is what we're learning now in Shoyachid V'Emunah and Tanya. If the infinite light were to be revealed, that would nullify the existence of the finite worlds. Why? Well, you wouldn't experience finite, you'd experience infinite, so then there would be no finite world there. Might it be there somewhere? I don't know. Would I experience it? No. Why? Because I'm not experiencing finite, I'm experiencing infinite. I have no idea what that means, right? Like the meaning what that experience is, but okay. It's relevant to the worlds. It's part of the deal, but it's not the specific source. Lochein, therefore, when this level of light is not revealed in the world. So that means I would understand the world. I would understand, let's put it this way. I would understand God as the creator of the world. And therefore, all of creation is an expression of his creative genius. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Amazing. That's true. But I wouldn't have any appreciation of any level of godliness beyond being creator of the world. I describe God as the creator of the world. That's it. That's who he is. That's his CV. Nothing else. Now that's a pretty good CV. You say, I get it, but can't relate to anything transcendent of that. So would I be lacking? Yes, but at least the basics I'd know. Hachisaron de'olam. So if I'm lacking sevev, if I'm lacking an appreciation of transcendent levels of godliness, hachisaron de'olam hu dugmas hachisaron. So then this lacking is similar to the lacking of sus lirkei v'lav ve'eved larutz lefonav. a horse to ride and a servant to run in front of him. In other words, what? It's very nice and it's a positive thing. Absolutely necessary? No. What's absolutely necessary? You have to understand the Abishah created the world, and the world is an expression of his existence. Without that, you're lacking everything. Right? You're poverty-stricken. What if a person doesn't yet appreciate higher levels of transcendent godly reality? He's missing something, but what's he missing? Well, he's not missing the basics. He's missing something that he should know, that he should learn about. 100%. Of course he has to learn about that. Right? I think most people would like a Lexus, right? In Gashmias, right? No, I'm fine walking. Okay, right. Tell me about it. Right? I've told you the story once. As for bringing, I don't want to say where. Just for bringing somewhere, and there were a bunch of guys. It was all young guys, young Lubavitchers, all young Lubavitchers, who were all making a good living. And there was a whole table over there that was paying absolutely no attention whatsoever. So I spoke to them. I was told about them. I spoke to them. I was told they aren't going to pay any attention, so don't worry about it. So I spoke to them and said, "Chevre, can I ask you guys a question?" Yeah. In Gashmias, what have you got? What kind of car do you drive? Lexus everywhere. Right? Your suits. It was not in a country of dollars, but let's say $500 suits. Yeah. Nice shoes. Good. In Gashmias, you got the best of the best, right? That's what you want, right? And you like that. You need that. Right? Okay, good. I get it. Tell me, your ruchnius, your spirituality, your davening is a Lexus or a broken down bus? You're learning Torah. Is a $500 suit or a pair of shorts that are torn? They were silent. What do you want in ruchnius? What do you want in Gashmias? What's necessary? Okay, so now, what's absolutely necessary in Gashmias? Basic physical needs. But what would you like? I'd like more than my basic physical needs, obviously. Okay, Beseder, so doing ruchnias. What are the basic spiritual needs? The Abishah created the world, and the world is a place of godliness. Okay, that's mamale. What's something that everybody should strive for? Sevev. If it's lacking, still you have the basics, but it would be nice to have a little more. Okay, you're fair. That's the sevev of it. That's what the Rebbe just said, which is really fascinating. Should you have the sevev? Of course you should have the sevev. Everybody should have the sevev. It's much easier to get the sevev in ruchnias than it is in Gashmias. Right? It's much. What do I mean? Meaning, Gashmias. Everything's in the hands of God except the fear of God, which means your spirituality. You have control over the amount of effort that you put into that will bear fruit. Relative to Gashmias, that's not always the case, right? You can work very, very hard and just never make it. Why? Because the Abishah decided you're not going to make it. Because Kol B'dei Shemayim. Everything's B'dei Shemayim. Ruchnias. You're not going to stop until you know how to learn a page of Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos. You will know how to learn a page of Gemara, Rashi, and Tosfos. It might take you 5 years and it took another guy a year. Fine, but it doesn't matter. You'll figure it out. Why? Because you're not giving up until you... In Gashmias, you can say that, but it's not necessarily going to happen. I'm not giving up until I make, you say $1 million, right? $1 million is like, okay, we'll start with $1 million, right? I'm not going to give up until I make a... When we were growing up, there's now 3 of us in the room again. When we were growing up, the best baseball player in the world was a guy named Willie Mays. He made $100,000 a year after he held out for it. $100,000 a year. These guys make $100,000 a pitch. It's not that long. It's not like, I'm 150 years old. Okay, fine. So I used to say $1 million. In the old, $1 million, if you had $1 million 50 years ago, you didn't have to work another day in your life. Right?
No, $1 million is
it's nice. It's nice to have $1 million, but it's. I think the house I live in is now worth $1 million.
Oh.
We bought it for $86,000. I think it's now worth $1 million. The house. You just bought a house in this country. You're saying, "Oh my gosh, $86,000." When we bought our house in Harnof, it was $86,000. Why we didn't buy three, I don't know. I didn't have another $86,000. Why I didn't tell my rich brother who was a lawyer. He wasn't so rich in those days. He was a young lawyer, but scratch together $25,000 for a down payment and buy another house in this place, because who knew, right? But I mean, some people did, just not people like me. So. Right, so you say, I'm going to make $1 million. They used to say, it's not that case anymore at all, but they used to say, if you want to make $1 million in Israel, come with two. Right? But that's not the case at all anymore, not at all, right? The BB changed all that in the last 20 years. But you want to make $10 million. So you can do everything possible to make the $10 million in Gashmis. And you can be successful. There's a lot of people who are successful with that. But it's not guaranteed. There's just no way. It's not guaranteed. Because who knows? It worked. It didn't work yet. This bad luck. You do all the surveys and open up the restaurant in exactly the right place where the restaurant should be, and no one comes. And someone else opened up. The restaurant business is always such a funny business, because someone else will open up a restaurant in Una. It's in the most ridiculous place, and every time you drive by, there's a line around the block by that restaurant. What is that guy doing that guy isn't? It's called mazel. The Eibishter wants that guy to make it, and he doesn't want that guy to make it. There's no other explanation, because Al Pi Teva, this guy did all the surveys and the studies and what food and what chef and everything. He did it all right. A few people come in and have a burger now and then. She doesn't even serve, but he has to, because no one else wants anything. Okay, no one wants anything else. Okay, but say, and the other guy, I don't know, there's some ridiculous food that no one eats, and there's a line around the block. Because God wanted him to win. In Ruchnias, you do the survey, you do all the hard work, you do everything you're supposed to do, guaranteed, you'll know how to learn a page of Gemara, you'll know how to learn a Maimer Chassidus, your davening will get a little better, guaranteed that there'll be progress in your Avodah. In the Mamale of it. Okay, so that's... Remember one line in Gemara class 44 years ago. Rabbi Baruch said, someone asked a question regarding how to learn a Rashi. It doesn't matter what the question is. If this were Gemara class, we'd talk about it. It's not. That's this particular question. How do you know how to do in learning Rashi? He said, I don't know, you do it about 500 times and you get the hang of it. Parenthetically, how do you learn how to hit a backhand down the line?
Do it about 500
Do
times?
that about 500, 1,000, 2,000 times, and you get the hang of it. Those guys who are the best and somehow can hit that backhand down the line when they're down match point in the most important match of their life, somehow they have the ability to do that under that pressure. Why? Because they practiced 10,000 times. And they just know, right? I mean, that's just what they did. There's no secrets. It was a shortcut. So what did Rabbi Baruch say about something that matters as opposed to backhands down the line? Mm-hmm. But I grew up playing tennis, and I was always amazed at the guys who could hit the backhand down the line when it mattered. I couldn't hit it when it didn't matter, but that was a separate issue. Right? So he asked if you do it about 500 times, you get the hang of it. He said, B'chlal, if you sit and learn for 20, 30 years, you'll know something. So then we were like a little shocked, right? 20, 30 years, like, that's a long time. And he said, but you should know, it's a guaranteed investment. You sit and learn Torah for a while, you'll know something, you'll know some Torah, you'll know how to do it, you'll get it, you'll figure it out. And if you look for shortcuts, for 20 years, what are you going to know after 20 years? One thing and one thing only. There's no shortcuts. No such thing. There's no such thing as a shortcut, right? You've all learned enough Torah to realize God's real. He doesn't believe in shortcuts. As Moshe Rubin said to someone once, there's no instant coffee in Chassidus. You have to grow the bean and then pick the bean and bake the bean and grind the bean, and in the end you end up with a good cup of coffee. Take a little thing, throw it in a cup and throw some water. I'm a chassid. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. So the necessity of it all, the bare necessity, mamale, the that which is a beautiful thing to have, but theoretically the world could exist without it, so to speak, meaning your sevev. That doesn't mean your world should exist without it. Ukemaimer Chazal, like Chazal say. Now, all of this means, of course, if you're an usher, you're connecting to a level beyond sevev, right? Because sevev is still the that which you are obligated to give the person who is accustomed to that. That's not the usher. Right? Said you give him the horse and the servant, but you're not commanded to make him rich. So making him rich is beyond the servant and the horse. So there's some level beyond sevev, which there is. Okay, we'll see. Ukemaimer Razal ala pasuk, like Chazal say on the pasuk, rather famous pasuk. You say it quite a bit. V'yechal Elokim b'yom hashvi, and Hashem completed on the seventh day. So what did He complete? What wasn't there? Ma haya olam chaser. What was the world lacking? Menucha, calm. Ba Shabbos, ba Menucha. Shabbos comes, Menucha comes. Shabbos came, Menucha came. Menucha isn't sleeping. Menucha is calm. He became sevev. Menucha is sevev. Shalamaylim yar mislavish be'elam. That's beyond the light that's clothed in the world. What's Mamali all about? Mamali is all about creating differentiation, creating a lack of apparent unity and oneness. Now, when you look at the Mamali properly, you'll see the unity in it all. Okay, Beseder. But Mamali is all about the existence of that which seems to conceal unity. And therefore, all of these different things, what are they all vying for? Some sort of state of themselves. So they're like bumper cars in a Luna Park, bumping into each other all the time. Okay, what's lacking? Calm, unity, oneness. That's Shabbos. Shabbos brings. The Rebbe hasn't said that yet, but well, actually, we just did. So Shabbos is that Menucha. Shabbos is the revelation of Sefer. Shabbos is the revelation of the ultimate Ratzon of the world. The Tainug, Eineg Shabbos, Tainug, Makif. Right? You said the two aspects of Kesser that we talked about. I mean, the third was mentioned, but the two that we talked about were Ratzon and Tainug, the two obvious makiftic powers of the soul, right? That can be expressed in everything you do, right? Equally. So you can experience pleasure from your feet, and you can experience pleasure from your brain thinking about an idea. That can be pleasant. What does the brain and my feet have to do with each other? Why? In the world of pleasure, in the world of tainuk, pleasure, they're all the same. In the world of mamale, this is intellect and that's smelly feet. Two completely different states of reality. Sevev is menucha, seeing the unity of it all, the harmony of it all. That's Shabbos. Ba Shabbos, ba menucha. Menuchi b'chinas sevev, shelamayla mi'ar mislavish be'elam. V'afal PK, nevertheless. K'shaloi haya begilu izeh ba'elam. If the world were lacking this, chos v'shalom, but were it to be lacking, they're lacking the revelation of this, haya olam choser, the world would be lacking. Elo, but, hachisaron hu lo shayach choser is a prat ba'olam atzmai. The lacking would not be that the world lacked shayach choser, it would be lacking is a prat, a particular detail in the world itself. So, I mean, you can imagine. A certain level of mamale is lacking in the world. So then that, whatever that is, doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist. If you not only there's no revelation of the mamali to you and me, that level of mamali isn't revealed in the world. So that whatever that is doesn't exist. Okay, so that's a real lacking. Whereas if the sevev of it is lacking, the menucha of it, the all-encompassing godly reality of it is lacking. So that's a lacking. But the thing still exists. I mean, it's not game over. Ki kol hapratim. Just find a place to stop and we'll stop. Ki kol hapratim da'olam. All the details of the world, nishavu, were brought about, nithavu, were brought into being. From the root lihiyot. But not really lihiyot, but lihavot. Lihiyot is to be, lihavot is to cause to be. Which is one of the meanings of the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. He's mehaveh, constantly. He's constantly bringing into being. Something you and I can't do. You and I can't give being to anything. We can give form to it, but we can't give being to it. You can change the form of it. But the actual existence, the action of working, of creation. So, what's that? Orem Islavish Beilim. That's all about Orem Amalim. And what that work, that was completed before Shabbos. Everything was there. Everything was there before Shabbos. It's all there. What was lacking? Sefer, Menucha, something transcendent. Something that the world could theoretically live without, but right? Theoretically, the Abishta could have stopped after 6 days and said, okay, that's it. It's all here. It's going to work. But once you've tasted Shabbos, life without Shabbos, just, what's that? Okay, Seder, is there such a thing as life without Shabbos? Theoretically. Can a person be alive without Shabbos? Yeah. Can a person be a happy, content person without Shabbos? Yeah. Why not? There's no happy people out there. There's 8 billion miserable people out there. Well, they're all miserable. There seems to be a lot of them that are miserable. They act like miserable people, most of them. Right? All those anti-Semites out there must be pretty miserable. Right? Because if you're a happy person, you don't spend your time hating anybody else. Right? There seems to be a lot of unhappy people out there. A lot of unhappy co-eds. Right? Lots of them. Just miserable. Miserable people. Okay, say they're okay. But they're all unhappy? Of course not. It's silly. Such a healthy, nice, loving, kind people out there. Okay. They've never heard of Shabbos. Are they missing something? You and I would say, whoa, you're missing something so incredible. But if you don't have it, does it mean there's no life? No, that's not. I mean, that's not. Okay, we could say that in a Farbrengen at 2 a.m. and we'd all get it. But no, that's not true. Yeah, life. Is life as rich as it could be? No. Does it have the menucha, the calm, the transcendence that it could have? No. But is it there? Yeah. It's also orderly. You got all the mamale in order. Amazing what the Rebbe is saying. Right? So Seviv is like having the Lexus with the servant. You need it absolutely? Well, no, but once you've had it, you do. Once you've had a Lexus and a servant, so then it's pretty hard to live without it. It'll become necessity. In Adarabba, we're obligated to give you that. Now, there's obviously a level beyond that we're not obligated to give you in Gashmias. We're not allowed to make, we're not obligated to make you rich. So what's that going to be in Ruchnias? So the Rebbe's going to tell us. I'm looking for a place to start. There's a period. Good. One line down. Right? She'ein ze davar hechrachi. The horse to ride on is not a davar hechrachi, something that's absolutely necessary l'tzorech kiyum chayusa in order to maintain life. You can be alive without the horse. His life is lacking something, but he's alive. Ukeshabas Shabbos, when Shabbos comes, v'nimshach v'nizgala orda sevev, and it's drawn down and revealed sevev in the world. Nisma legam chisaron zeh, and this lacking is also filled. And the next thing we'll see it tomorrow morning. Be'inyan hashidus to Moshe who? So what's Moshe all about? Because Moshe is beyond that too. Because Moshe is not just the sus lirkei v'lav and eved larutz lefanav. Moshe is tefillah la'ashir. And you can have the sus and you're still not an usher. How do you know? Well, because Chazal say you have to give him the sus and you have to give him the eved, but you don't have to make him rich. So there's obviously a level beyond the sus and the rechev that's called rich. The sus and the eved that's called rich. That's where Moshe's holding. Because Moshe's not going to lack anything. Okay, we'll see that tomorrow. Shkeya.
What does happening?
Absolutely necessary. Sarif is necessary. Need. Mukhrach is absolute necessity. It's an emphatic expression of tzarich.